I'm Louise Mabulo. I grew up in one of the most typhoon-prone areas in the world, the Philippines. I've seen firsthand how weather patterns are getting more extreme and how they impact more than 180 million people in developing countries each year. In 2017, I launched an agroforestry initiative to rebuild my homeland, Camarines Sur, after it was devastated by a super typhoon. I've been advocating for the planet ever since.
Hi, my name is Louise Mabulo, and I'm the founder of the Cacao Project.
We established many farms like these across the town to build resilient and climate-smart livelihoods for the farmers here.
I came up with a solution to address natural disasters and its impact on food systems, and how we can give farmers more autonomy.
All right, let's go. This year, I'm traveling the world to meet the people and their amazing tech. That's so cool. That's redefining the fight against climate change.
You can train a machine learning algorithm to detect every single tree.
It caught so fast. This is crazy.
And those tuning into nature's cries for help with ultra-sensitive receptors.
We call it ultra-early detection.
We begin with a problem close to my heart: forests. Each year, forests the size of Iceland is lost to human activity, natural disasters, and climate change. 900 kilometers away from my home in Camarines Sur is the sleepy little coastal town of Caguait.
I'm not gonna turn back, I'm gonna look down.
I'm heading for the municipality's last remaining mangrove forests with conservationist Camille Rivera. Mangroves are like the bouncers of the coastline, keeping the bad stuff out, like storm surges and erosion, and the good stuff in, like fish, crabs, and shrimp. Since the 1920s, the Philippines has lost more than half of its original mangroves, making their conservation critical.
Whoa. Yes, made it. It's my first time into an actual mangrove forest. It's a little overwhelming, but it's stunning because it's like you have these wild root systems coming at you.
Yeah.
I see everyone's already kind of
Everyone's
assembled.
here. Yeah, we then have these communities. They were trained back in, I think, 2023, recently. We trained them to collect data, and we use a cell phone with an app.
The locals are working on a platform called Gainforest, a pilot project that incentivizes forest conservation. Gainforest provides a way for communities to get paid for data collected on the world's forests. All they have to do is measure these trees. Yes, the trees.
Each team member has a role. They would have to collect the diameter breast height. Also, apart from that, they have to collect the GPS coordinates and other metadata that we needed.
By measuring the dimensions of a particular tree, the community team is in fact gathering important data, like the amount of biomass and carbon stored within this forest. Every tree measured earns the community 60 cents, turning conservation data into a kind of currency for rural communities.
So if you are very trained with the data collection, it takes 2 to 3 minutes.
Wow.
But with communities, it's the analyzing what is the species. So it takes time for them also. But after that, they'll be fast. They're like 3 to 4 minutes.
Sir Virgilio, at 70 years, is one of the oldest members of the team. But what he lacks in tech skills, he makes up with good old experience.
It's a wasp.
I was stood right underneath that.
Like how he just saved me from becoming a wasp's dinner.
Five, 26. Yun, utang mo duha, 26. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, around 7 liters.
Fine. So we just need to make sure that within the 4 hours of low tide, we only have those 4 hours a day
measure.
to measure. And we have to do it very fast with all the routes.
We left the guys alone so they could finish up with their measurements before the tide comes in. In the meantime, Camille takes me to a site that would help me visualize why mangrove restoration is a long and difficult process.
In Southeast Asia, as research has shown that 47% of destruction for mangroves is due to aquaculture fish ponds. This is one of the sites that, as you can see, it used to be mangrove forest. You can actually see the remnants of the roots.
The trend of swapping mangroves for aquaculture in the Philippines began in earnest in the 1960s. Driven by growing demand for seafood and the belief that fish farms would boost local economies.
The level where we're standing now is the original level of the soil. The moment you dug down 1 meter below and it's full of water, and the moment you have the water incoming, for these mangroves, it will be harder for them to survive later on. If you wanted to bring the soil back, that is very costly, that's very laborious. So we would raise the soil a bit high where it was this level, but in patches.
The concept of restoring mangroves isn't new. People have been planting, funding, and hoping for a magical, self-sustaining ecosystem for decades. But Oceanus Conservation has a different approach.
So we're headed into one of our project sites.
And then this is your nursery.
Yes.
Oceanus hires locals to work on their restoration projects to ensure long-term success. The NGO provides the resources, tools, and support, like this community-run nursery, to enable the community to not just participate, but thrive in conservation.
This is Rhizophora. This is Avicennia alba. That's a different one.
Oh, those
That's
ones.
Avicennia as well. So we started the nursery in 2021. Then they already expanded to this side, and some of the agencies sometimes buy here to reforest in their sites also, like Bureau of Fisheries, other local government.
So all the mangroves that you grow here aren't just exclusively for this municipality. It grows everywhere.
Yeah. They can just sell it to different, but that's the idea. It can be a livelihood. So they have the option, they have the freedom to actually sell it by themselves to other localities.
Growing and selling mangrove saplings was the community's main source of conservation income, up until the arrival of the Gainforest app. We made a date to see Sir Virgilio the following day to see how the platform has made a difference to the village. Except when we did arrive the next day...
Can I just call Vic?
Sure.
Sorry,
Yeah, no worries.
Sir Virgilio's not here.
Where's Sir Virgilio?
It's in the mangroves.
Oh my God.
I know.
He seemed to have forgotten about it.
So Sir Virgilio is out in the mangroves. We're here at his house, and he's actually out in the mangroves, probably measuring data.
After a half hour of waiting, Sir Virgilio makes it home.
Okay lang. Tingin sa lakin po You're welcome to enter my house. This is my wife, Alejandra Garay. Ito, mga kwarto ma'am, hindi pa natapos. Walang budget. Bathroom, wala pa natapos. Walang budget. Guba-guba na ma'am, kay gibag-gibagyo.
Lagi, okay ra.
Wala, sa una pa yung kuwan pa ma'am. May kuwan pa dito, may pambut ko pa, mayon. May kuwan dito, yung hagdanan.
Kayo po, nangingisda din po kayo?
Nung una.
Sir Virgilio, like most of the villagers here, used to make a living by fishing. That was until an accident at sea.
I was missed for this. Ako yung kuan ma'am na baniog ko sa mga bats, abot sa Amerika, sa ako mga bats.
Oh,
Adto ko sa Tarangani Island for this.
naabot ka dito?
Ha?
Niabot ka dito? Ano kabot ka dito?
Nakuan man ang katong ako katig ba diri na full of water na ang iyang every section sa bamboo.
Kanus ara ni kuya?
Last year.
Last year?
Ika 4 days ng kuan 11 o'clock in the morning. Gasubay na ko ma'am sa water sa Paingon, Indonesia.
Wow!
Mayo gani kay mga pirates ngadto daghan man. Tawag nila nga ang bakpari, mga tulisan dagat ba?
Oo.
Kuhaon ang imo makina, kunya patayong pakagyud.
After his brush with death, Sir Virgilio no longer has a taste for the sea. Instead, he makes a living now from other activities, like tree data collection, and has even been appointed the chairman of the Mangrove project.
Grabe po pala yung story nyo.
Maiyak si Sir. Ayaw sila, Sir.
Kasi tanan, barangay kami na yun ang naka-kwarta-kwarta gid kan ma'am sa ilang mga project, nalipay gid sila nga sa kawadon masulbad-sulbad ma'am. Tapos sila gid ang nag-provide sa amo sa mga nets, mga bambos, mga silupin, o mga yapay mga kasaan nila nga on that day pagtrabaho nimo you can receive directly the money from there or from the oceanos.
For Sir Virgilio, diving into technology isn't exactly a walk in the park. But the old-timer handles it like he's seen tougher days, and probably has. There's no gadget or app that's going to get the better of him.
Hindi ako masyadong marunong mag-cellphone, ma'am.
I see. Pero sino po sumasama sa inyo para maglagay ng cellphone?
Mr. Itok, yung vice president ko. Pero, successfully gyapon kami.
Oo.
4 groups kami. Kami ang nagko-first prize. First, kaya ko man na may kulang doa. So, kami lang ang nagka-perfect.
Ano po ang mga pangarap niyo para sa inyo po at sa pamilya niyo? Anong plano niyo for the next years?
Simple lang, ma'am. Yung palagi may pagkain. Yung dalawa kong anak, yung isa, mahirap yung trabaho. Yung isa, yung junior ko, yan sa call center yan. Yan ang trabaho. Ano lang, yung makuha yung bahay namin. Magkaroon ng mabuting katawan, walang sakit, para maka-survive in a few years. Yung ibang mga barangay, bakit kunus wala sila? Wala pa masyado. Bakit kami lang?
Expansion na ng Oceanos dapat.
Naku, hindi ko alam. Ano yung kuha nila sa iyo.
Oo.
Gusto mag-nursery sila. Sige, mag-nursery ka mo. Para makakuha ka mo.
I'm in the fishing town of Caguayat, Philippines, where time seems to slow down and life revolves around the rhythm of the sea. Like many coastal communities, Caguayat is seeing the effects of overfishing, climate change, and environmental degradation. Storms are happening more often, and the fish are fewer. But since a couple years ago, an online platform called Rainforest has been making waves in this community. It's offering locals a stake in protecting their slice of paradise. Take Sir Virgilio, for example, who swapped his fishing nets for a measuring tape and now earns a healthy income from data collection. But for most of the folks here, the story is more complicated. A delicate balance between saving the land and sea and putting food on the table.
So we're here in an active fish pond where Camille's taking us to have lunch and to see where the fish comes from and where the main form of livelihoods originally come from the fisher folk here in Caguayat. It's such interesting connect how you have a very grassroots community organization and farmers and fisher folk being incentivized, giving them an alternative livelihood. Because I mean, we're not going to replace these beautiful crabs immediately.
For sure.
You know, this coming from like the fish ponds around us.
The crabs are coming from the fish ponds, right? The fish coming from the ocean. And those are the things that are important. Like, we cannot really remove fisheries to restore an ecosystem. That's what we're doing in Oceanus, just making sure that we balance the food from what we can collect and also restoring ecosystem and its biodiversity.
And at the same time, they make money from both sides.
Exactly.
It's
I
super
think
cool.
You're lucky if you have a young community. Like, if you have younger age group, then the technology can be directly goes to them and no need for any NGO to be in between. But then the age group that we're working with is really like from 40 to 65 years old. And of course, this older generation, they need to be supported. So we need to be there like we're handing a baby, like, you know, hand in hand. We can't just leave them alone.
So essentially, you're like that middle person where you translate it, make it culturally viable, and then you take it down to the communities and the grassroots level.
Exactly.
So it's accessible.
It's one thing to see tech-savvy young guns diving headfirst into climate solutions. But when the older folks, deeply rooted in traditions, could get on board as well, is when things get interesting. Which brings me to the question, who's behind this platform that's making it all click? To find out, I was told to head for the mountains of Switzerland.
Oh, this is such a beautiful place.
It is. I think it's one of the most beautiful places in the world.
Dr. David Dow, an AI researcher who's worked in both academia and Silicon Valley, has asked me to meet him in Gimmelwald, his favorite spot in the world.
You can see the glacier.
I think this is my first close-up look at a glacier.
I mean, this whole valley was a huge glacier. Can you imagine?
I can.
In the shadow of these impressive glaciers is where David thought to use AI and blockchain to incentivize rainforest preservation.
These hams are delicious, by the way. What was the inspiration behind Gainforest?
Traditionally, we fund conservation through carbon credits or biodiversity credits or just through the goodwill of donations. But we don't really believe that scales, and we were looking into something that is more valuable. And we realized that data is actually one of the key elements of our digital economy. Lots of people earn a lot of money with data, Google, Meta. So why not the communities on the ground, right?
Right.
And so we built an infrastructure that allows everyone on the ground to easily, without tech knowledge, upload this data, collect this data using an Android or like iPhone app, and then instantly get paid out when the data is getting uploaded.
The reason David believes this data is valuable is because he says 85% of all biodiversity data ever collected comes from the West, Europe, and North America, leaving only 15% from the rest of the world. These data points, collected on the ground by server Helios and other communities around the world, are filling an important data gap. But that amount of data, measuring tree by tree, isn't enough. That's where AI and machine learning come into play.
How does AI and machine learning factor into it?
Based on the data that the communities have collected, you can train a machine learning algorithm to detect every single tree.
Oh, here we go.
This is satellite imagery,
Okay.
overlaid on drone imagery. You can see every single tree, even the ones that you haven't measured around.
So based on the few trees that you can measure, you can immediately measure the rest of the forest.
What this AI is doing is essentially taking a handful of data points, combining them with satellite imagery, and filling in the blanks. Instead of measuring every single tree out there, the algorithm analyzes what's measured and makes smart predictions about the trees nearby. And the more data you feed it, the richer and more layered the story becomes. This data is highly sought after by conservation organizations to make sense of things, track impact, and shine a light on what's working and what's not. So it's data that David hopes could actually put money into the pockets of the people on the ground.
We almost have no data in the global south, like only 15%. This is probably the best algorithm in the market right now. Yeah.
So exciting. They say, you know, there's so much fear around AI and tech and robotics. This is like a whole vision of a better future.
But David is working on something better, and he's giving me a sneak peek.
So actually, we're working on a new sensor. But if you take a picture of an animal, they're quite shy, they hide from humans. So how do you detect biodiversity? And one very promising sensor that's coming into play right now is bioacoustics.
Bioacoustics is where biology meets sound. It's how bats hunt in pitch dark with ultrasonic clicks. How whales have entire symphonies echoing across the oceans. And how birds sing to mark their territories and to mate. Think of it as the backstage pass to the hidden conversations of the planet, a way to listen in on life itself.
So evolution has found out its way to kind of have its own Spotify list.
How?
And that trick allows us to actually get the soundscape, the overall sound, and just understand from the sound alone, without knowing what kind of exact species it is, what kind of bird type, insect type, and bat type, how active they are over a certain type of period. This is kind of one of the cheap sensors that can involve the communities to deploy in key positions.
I love how handy it is. It's just AA battery you can buy at a grocery store.
When I think about tech for good, this is the kind of stuff that comes to mind. The kind of innovation that actually changes lives, not just markets. So what's David really aiming for here? What's his master plan?
What is next?
As we're collecting more and more data, these algorithms getting better and better, and hopefully more useful to society itself, which society then pays to use the algorithms. And that would be the dream if we actually make ourselves kind of redundant as the organization, right? That everything is like autonomous, it works. I mean, it's reflected in our mission. Like we want to stop deforestation by 2030. So we hope the rainforest does not exist after 2030.
I'm saying goodbye to David for now and taking a short hop to neighboring Germany to meet another trailblazing entrepreneur. Every year, millions of hectares of forests go up in flames, and it's more than just trees we're losing. Forest fires pump out carbon, mess with the climate, and wipe out entire ecosystems. Like the ones in California in the early days of 2025 that claimed over 29 lives and billions of dollars in damages. I'm traveling from the German capital Berlin and heading 30 minutes out to the town of Eberswald. Once a major center for metalworking, it swapped its industrial past for a reputation in sustainability.
This is where we do the engineering, the development of prototypes before it moves them into production.
Dryad is the latest of Karsten Brinkschultz's entrepreneurial ventures. A guy who had spent 20 years working in mobile network infrastructure. His system is all about early detection, to catch fires before they turn into infernos. It's like giving forests their own smoke alarm.
The Dryad system has three components. The first one is the sensor. It's like an electronic nose. It can smell a fire. And when it detects a fire, it needs to send an alarm to the firefighters. And for that, we need connectivity. If you're in the middle of the forest, well, there typically isn't any mobile network, right? So how do those sensors connect? Well, for that, we created a network. This is our gateway. And we install it every 2 to 3 kilometers on a tree. Just hang it, and it creates a digital network around it. This is then connected to the internet. There's no mains power, no power plug. So we needed to create a solar-powered system that can work for 10 to 15 years, maintenance-free in the forest.
Karsten calls this system the Internet of Trees, a rugged mesh network right in the middle of the forest.
I was a little afraid of touching it at first, but now I'm like,
Yeah, this is ruggedized. it can last a long time.
Now we're getting to the really good stuff. Wildfires don't start with a dramatic blaze. They creep in quietly, smoldering in the undergrowth, hidden from sight. So how do we catch it before it explodes into chaos?
This is where we train the artificial intelligence in the sensors. It's a digital nose, effectively. And here in the laboratory, we are creating artificial fires. You will see smoke being generated over there and then piped through this pipe into the chamber where the sensors are. And over here, we've got a climate chamber where we are simulating different types of climate environment.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It's like a gym for the sensors.
I'm a kid of the German Democratic Republic. Yes,
From the east.
Before war. Yes, from the east side. I learned 10 years Russian and 4 years English.
Oh my goodness.
The person training these sensors is Dr. Jürgen Müller, who developed a prototype for early forest fire detection at the Thunen Institute of Forest Ecosystems.
You need data, a lot of data. Carsten have a great network all over the world. The customer bring a little bit from forest ground. I create a manual, and we have here, for instance, for needles from Italy. Then we have also this from a beech forest in Spain, humus layer from Turkey, treated timber from Canada.
I actually recognize the Douglas fir because of its carbon storage capability.
And here is a piece of Douglas.
Here's a piece of Douglas, yeah.
We hope in the future we have also material from eucalyptus from Australia.
Oh, this is so cool. So they essentially have the forests of the world in a little menu library just on the shelf.
Combusting different forest materials and simulating various climate conditions, these guys are able to mimic forest fires in different parts of the world.
We can heat it up and make it humid or cool it down and make it dry, whatever you want to simulate.
So it's like a spa day for the
It's like a spa day for the sensors. So this is the gym, this is the spa.
The goal is to train the AI to identify a forest fire in different territories. Time to see it in action.
And then we have my colleague, Agil. Where's Agil? Agil, come here. Okay. Agil is from India, and he's also very fit on the computer. Agil, please start with 3 grams for this test.
Dr. Müller starts the experiment by creating a small amount of smoke and introducing the exterior air to simulate real-world conditions. He then slowly reduces the amount of smoke to test the reactivity of the sensors.
So we see the first change in the gas resistance. The curves are showing that the sensors are picking up.
Oh yeah, I see it. I can smell it now,
Yeah,
right?
and so does the sensor. And it's trying to identify, is this actually a fire, or is this a diesel truck driving by, or is it just clean air, or maybe some, organic material decomposing and smelling like rotten?
What differentiates Dryad from a normal smoke sensor is the AI in the back end. It analyzes its database of smells and figures out if it's getting a sniff of our modern life. Vehicles, trash, pollution, or something more sinister, like the start of an actual fire.
If it says, well, this is a fire, then we send out an alert to the firefighters.
And this is brilliant considering that if I were walking along the forest, I wouldn't exactly know right now, even if I can smell this, that this is going to be a beginning of a forest fire. I'm curious how this technology differs from kind of everything that existed before in fire detection.
Yeah, most fire detection is actually based on optical systems, like either humans seeing a fire from afar or cameras that are placed in elevated areas overlooking large areas, waiting for smoke plumes to rise above the canopy. Or we have satellites that are looking down from space to Earth, and they're all good, except they're quite slow, sometimes hours after the fire has started. We can smell a fire in its infancy, when it's still possible and easy to extinguish. We call it ultra early detection.
To truly understand what ultra early means, we have to see it in the field. We don't have to go very far, because the forests in Eberswald are the perfect testing grounds.
So we're here in a small urban forest in Eberswald, and we're about to simulate a forest fire to see how the remote sensors react.
Before we start, Dr. Mueller notifies the fire department of our little experiment.
Oh, you really do call them?
Yes. Die Firma Dryet, wir entwickeln ein Waldbrandfrühwarnsystem.
Ja.
One owner of the private forest is a Ubish. He live in this village and he have a small private owner.
He owns about 4 hectares of private forests, which he has kindly allowed his friend Dr. Mueller to experiment on occasionally.
And I imagine these forests, once you own them and you have them, it's just something very close to you. So you want to do everything you can to protect it.
Ja, natürlich. Also wir kennen uns beide, wir wohnen in einem Ort und ich habe unsere Initiative erfahren und ich habe das von Anfang an gut geheißen, unterstützt und bin da voll mit bei. Das ist Herzblut, sag ich mal, so Hobby.
So we're good to go?
Yes, oh, yeah. Now can we do it?
So here's the wild truth. Wildfires aren't necessarily happening more often, but they're way more intense now thanks to climate change. Think about the Los Angeles wildfires at the start of 2025. Persistent drought that turned vegetation into kindling, rising temperatures that dried out the land, and shorter winters leaving little moisture to resist the flames. These factors create a perfect storm, fires that are destructive, fast-moving, and intense. Fires that can engulf neighborhoods and turn the skies apocalyptic.
So finally, the real-world ecosystem. Ooh, I can feel it in my eyes. It caught so fast. This is crazy. We're only burning trees for the sake of science, okay? This is to prevent future burning. No trees were harmed, hopefully, during production. These are all pruned branches, and trees do need a haircut.
This is a sensor for the wind speed. 0.3 and 0.5 meter per second.
It's almost no wind.
That means it's a small wind. That means the smoke go to the canopy, not in all directions.
But this kind of fire, cameras won't be able to see.
Yeah.
Because everything remains under the canopy.
And if no one was here and I were in the residential and this tree canopy was covering it, I don't think I would see a fire of that size.
You wouldn't see it.
In this experiment, we're looking for speed, how fast the sensors pick up on the fire.
So the sensors woke up.
It's detected something in the air.
Atmosphere.
And it's looking for the confirmation.
I don't think it's been more than 10 minutes.
Yeah, so now we've had the sensors detecting that there is a presence of smoke, but we still need to have the verification. So the artificial intelligence is now analyzing the gas.
What are we seeing here?
Here you can see there is 2 alerts from 2 sensors, and you can see the time and the location of the sensor. And the customer will get an email with the coordinates.
And how fast did it detect it from the fire that we started?
So we started at 13:51. So today noted, we detected at 23. So maybe within 25-30 minutes.
25-30 minutes. Wow, that's fast.
Yes.
And to think this is just a fire that's just about that big.
Yes.
That Dr. Jürgen was feeding.
Yes. It's maybe we use maximum of 10 kg or maximum 8 kg material.
Right.
Not more than 10 kg for sure.
Sure enough, someone got our SOS.
So the firefighters are here responding to our forest fire. They're here specifically to take it out after being notified by the sensors that there's a forest fire. Can I ask for a selfie? 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
After seeing the sensors in the field, I'm going back to Berlin. The city where startups are born and fueled by the energy of a diverse global community is where Dryad has chosen to base its software teams. The data that Dr. Muller's team generates in the lab and the field are processed here and written into the software.
So, Eric, can you show us a bit of the user interface?
This deployment is essentially an infrastructure protection deployment to protect the poles and the internet connection that this company TELUS has.
When critical infrastructure goes down, it's a race against time, with the risk of entire regions losing connectivity. Some of the areas that the system currently protects include vital bridges, public parks, and remote forests.
Yeah, so this is one of the latest deployments that we have going on. Yeah.
So this is in an island somewhere in Indonesia.
Yeah.
And from here in Germany, we can actually monitor forest fires.
Exactly.
Somewhere that far out.
And now the system will learn the specific smell of the forest in that region, so that it can be adapted and work more reliably in that environment. And hopefully we can protect Singapore and other regions from the haze that comes from Indonesia every summer, right?
What began as a team of 7 people 4 years ago is now a company of nearly 50 with global ambitions. And Carson tells me it started right here in his home.
There's all these like little sectors or regions.
We actually started in here. So this is my office, home office. So we did everything virtually from here. So the desk and the 3D printer and the workshop.
Thank you so much for this coffee, Carson.
You're welcome. Since you're a coffee lover, I hope you enjoy it.
Oh, cheers. I will, I think. Good stuff.
In 2018, there were lots of fires on the news. Like first the Black Friday in Australia, and then in California, and in the Amazon, really huge fires, which I don't know, I didn't see that before. So then at the same time, we had the Fridays for Future movement here in Europe. Children protesting, going on the street, including my daughter back then in London. It makes a lot of sense that the youth protested about climate change, right? Because we're destroying the environment that they will grow up in, and we're basically spending their future.
Completely agree with you. What are your hopes and dreams and ambitions for the future of Dryad?
So we really want to have an environmental impact. Because look, wildfires are causing 20% of global CO2 emissions, right? That's about 6 to 8 billion tons of CO2, the same amount the entire traffic puts into the air. So if we can cut down a few big, massive fires, we will have made a big impact on climate change and delay CO2 emissions.
It's a beautiful thing, really, watching the next generation light a fire under their parents. And those same parents who once held all the power and the answers, looking at their kids and their future that's on the line, and having a reason to care once again. It's been a few months since I last saw David and Camille. They're in Caguayat to introduce the new AudioMoth sensor to the local residents. So that's where I'll be catching up with them.
I think they're here. Hey guys! Hello, hello! Good to see you again! So what's the plan for today?
So the plan for today is we're meeting with our old friends from the community.
Okay.
We're teaching them the new tech that we discussed in Zurich. And then let's see how it goes.
David starts by training the Oceanus team, who would be passing along the knowledge to the locals.
This is a microphone that never sleeps until the battery runs out. It can be awake for weeks, sometimes months, just listening and recording.
The AudioMoth, a low-cost, open-source acoustic monitoring device, is making wildlife monitoring much cheaper and easier compared to before. Similar to the capabilities of a moth, it picks up on a wide range of frequencies, including those beyond the human hearing range.
The red is most likely frogs, and the yellow frequencies here most likely insects. Maybe you don't know what kind of species it is, but you know the genus of it. What kind of genus is most active in what area and what time? Some practical tips here. When you deploy it in a dense forest, like a wildlife trap camp, you need to really remember where you put it, right? Usually the best is right below the canopy. So don't put it on the ground, put it like somewhere with free space. And then it has a kind of like a radius of 100 to 250 meters of recording that it has. So try to avoid like very large obstacles that can prevent sound from coming through.
In this part of the world, acoustic data, historic or otherwise, barely exists. That's what makes today's mission so electrifying. It'll be a first step into the unknown, the first sounds ever captured from this biodiversity.
Woo, I'm excited. I've been wanting to get in the water. Oh, there's a lot of hermit crabs. They aerate the soil, so it's good for the sand, it's good for the soil. It's such a good sign of biodiversity in life because it means that the area is alive, you know?
Not to mention, it's good to see Sir Virgilio again.
Ito, marami oh. Shell.
Shells. So he's showing me some shells. Let's have a look. Wow. They're just growing right there on the trunk. It's beautiful.
So, pilion nimo ang set deployment site. Ang set deployment site. Tapos ato are siyang so change lang.
Wala. Minus na mata.
Okay.
Minus na mata.
So they were laughing because Sir Felix was struggling with seeing the screen. He says, my eyes are getting kind of weak. And then he was like zooming in as much as possible to get things right.
So madunggan nimo siya nagatingog na siya. So meaning nagasync na siya. Makitaan pud nimo ang duha ka light, ang green ug ang red. So kung madunggan na nimo ang sound niya, imuha i-click ang yes.
When compared to the grind of measuring trees in these rough terrains, which pays out 60 cents per tree, the audio moths, once installed, only need to be checked every 3 days. These things could be earning money for the community with every minute of sound they capture. A hands-off way to bring in income while collecting cutting-edge data that conservationists could only dream of before.
They're worried that it would be stolen by other people, so we told them to place that one, the audio in a location where they can remember and it has been seen by most of the people.
So we're about to get fully wet right here in the middle of the mangrove forest.
Sanay na akyat bahay. Ay, kamu batikid.
Yeah, tapos i-retrieve tayo na siya after 3 days.
Kang kami di.
They're saying
Okay lang kay na.
put a guard on the audio.
So, hindi siya mabasa.
Ngayon, mag-set tag deployment site. Magbutang na sa tagwa ito. Kay ikadua naman eh.
Kagwa ito.
Ito ni picturean. And take na yan.
So, kana. Kaya nimo. Then, i-close. Make sure na ma-close siya og maayo.
Close open.
So we've deployed the first audio moth sensor, and we're headed to the second location.
Second location is like a mini avatar tree.
It is a mini avatar tree, huh? So mangrove tree of this size would be 100 or so years old. A little nook in the middle of the tree right there. That way, nothing should be able to reach it, and nothing should be able to find it. Awesome. So that's the job done for the day.
At the heart of every ecosystem are the people who live alongside it, its stewards or its undoing. Conservation isn't just about preserving landscapes or cataloging species. It's about empowering the people who call these places home, and those are committed to protecting them. Now, with technology as our ally, we're hearing voices and uncovering solutions that were once beyond reach. Far from lofty slogans about saving the planet, it's really about working together to redefine our place in it.